Hello everyone, I'm Justin, and this is a full recap of Tmnt released in 2007. If you end up enjoying this video and want to see more from us, then make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to know anytime we upload a new video. With there having been so many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle projects made for TV and film over the last 35 plus years, it's a given that some would be forgotten with time. And that seems to have been the case with the Turtles' 2007 theatrical outing, likely due to their slight drop in popularity around the time. But despite them not being as popular as they were or would be in the decades before and after, Tmnt did still manage to be a small commercial success, with it bringing in $95 million worldwide at the box office on a budget of $35 million. And it seems to rank highly for most fans amongst the other Tmnt films released in theaters, although that isn't necessarily a high bar. We personally found the film to be pretty enjoyable though, and would probably say it's either around the same tier or just a tier below the original live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film released in 1990, which we've actually recapped along with its two sequels recently, so if you want to check that out, it'll be linked in the description below. And we think it'd probably be beneficial to your viewing experience of Tmnt if you go and watch the 90s trilogy first, as there are a few Easter eggs within the 2007 movie that we'll get to a bit later that suggest that they all take place within the same universe, although there's no actual clear answer on whether or not that's true, as while the film's director, Kevin Munroe, has claimed before that it does exist with the other films, the Turtles' co-creator, Peter Laird, has stated the exact opposite to be true, so it's really up to you to decide how you want to interpret it. Before we get started with our recap, make sure, if you haven't already, to go watch Tmnt, as it'll be linked in the description so you can enjoy it for yourself. But if you have seen it and are just looking for a quick refresher, then you've come to the right place. The movie opens on the four Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael, traveling along the rooftops of New York City as a narration plays in the background to recap their history, explaining their origin and how they were genetically reborn in the sewers, their training under their master Splinter to become skilled ninjas, and their previous battles with various creatures and foes, including the likes of their archenemy, Shredder, who, despite a struggle, they eventually managed to defeat. Now though, we see that another evil has arrived that could potentially pose a threat to their brotherhood, born 3,000 years ago. At that time, a warlord named Yautl and his army seek to conquer all the kingdoms of the world, and during their conquest, they discovered a constellation known as the Stars of Keegan, which, every 3,000 years, would align and open a portal to a world of unknown power. So he attempted to use its power to complete his conquest, but although it granted him immortality, it turned his brotherhood into stone and released 13 monsters into the world that continue to plague mankind to this day. Moving ahead to the present now though, and to Central America, where we see a group of corrupt army officers threatening and stealing from a village, although the villagers' supplies are fortunately soon returned back to them thanks to who's become known as the Ghost of the Jungle swiftly taking the officers out. Not too long after this encounter, a close friend of the Turtles named April O'Neil arrives at the village in search of this ghost, and eventually, after some hiking through the jungle, she tracks them down and reveals them to be Leonardo. We learn that some time ago, Leo had been sent down here by Splinter so he can work on becoming a better leader. But although his training period ended a year ago, he's decided not yet to return home, refusing to go back a failure. April believes it's time he came back though, claiming that his brothers need and are lost without him. As since he's been gone, Donnie's gotten stuck working a lame job as an IT tech support. Mikey's become a birthday performer under the name Cowabunga Carl, and Raph just sleeps all day. But Leo still doesn't appear to be planning a return anytime soon. Following her reunion with Leo, April then heads off to address the actual reason she'd come to Central America, as she'd previously been employed by industrialist and founder of Winters Corp, Max Winters, to locate the stone statues of the four generals mentioned earlier, and she succeeds in doing so, later transporting the statues over to Winters with help from her boyfriend Casey Jones, who's another close friend of the Turtles and is himself a crime-fighting vigilante as well. It's quickly revealed shortly following April's exit that Winters isn't just looking to add these artifacts to his impressive collection. As it turns out, he's actually the immortal Yautl, and has found a way to bring his four generals back to life, which he promptly does. And upon their revival, he then sends them, along with a criminal organization that used to be led by the Shredder and is now led by a ninja named Karai known as the Foot Clan, to track down and bring the 13 monsters still walking the earth to him. These monsters aren't the only things wreaking havoc on the streets of New York though, as we see there's a new masked vigilante in town called the Night Watcher, who's been spending their nights taking down criminals and whose identity is mostly unknown. At least, that is until the vigilante encounters Casey Jones, who easily deduces that they're actually Raphael, and we learn that he decided to become the Night Watcher after Splinter sent Leo away and refused to allow him and his brothers to fight until his return. Casey doesn't see a problem with Raph's desire to prevent crime though, so he decides to continue keeping his identity a secret from the others, and the two even begin working together. Once done with his night of crime fighting, Raph returns to their home in the sewers, to which he soon sees Leo has finally returned as well. But Raph, having built up resentment towards Leo during his time away, doesn't greet him as warmly as Mikey, Donnie, and Splinter, who are all very happy to have him back. But even though Leo's back, Splinter still forbids them from fighting until they can once again act as one. So Leo takes them up to the roof to get back to training, but before they can get started, they hear and see commotion going on across the street at a building construction. And when they go to check it out, they find the Foot Clan battling one of the 3,000-year-old monsters, which Leo attempts to stop his brothers from getting involved with, per Splinter's orders, but Raph chooses not to listen and rushes towards the beast, forcing his brothers to join in as well. Karai soon realizes the turtles have joined the fight, so she promptly attacks Leo, who manages to avoid her multiple strike attempts while explaining that they're trying to help, but she refuses to ever accept help from them and orders her team to exit, leaving the turtles to fight the monster alone and be primarily manhandled. Their fight is eventually interrupted though, upon the Stone General's arrival, who take the monster out in a matter of seconds and drag it back to Winter's headquarters, while the turtles escape back to the sewers, where they're eventually confronted by Splinter for going against his orders, which frustrates Raph even more than he already was, and leads him to try and go handle this monster situation with Casey instead, with whom he watches from above atop another rooftop as the Foot and Winter's Stone Generals capture another monster, before Casey accidentally draws their attention onto them, resulting in Raph getting shot with a tranquilizer dart and one of the Stone Generals rushing up towards them. But fortunately, a police helicopter arrives that forces the general to leave, allowing Casey to eventually leave as well with a now incapacitated Raph, who he takes back with him to his and April's apartment. Soon, the remaining turtles arrive at the apartment as well after April had informed them of what happened, and while checking on Raph, Donnie finds a stone shuriken attached to his shell, which brings April to connect all of what's happened to Max Winters, and in turn, him to the legend of Yaltal, which she had previously thought was just some scary story that locals told their kids, but now realizes is real. So now that they know who's behind the monsters, the Foot, and the Stone Generals, Raph believes they should go find Winters and take him out, but Leo says they're not doing anything until they get Splinter's blessing to fight, which once again frustrates Raph, and he ultimately decides to quit the team, tired of having to obey Leo or Splinter's orders. Now on his own, Raph suits up in his Night Watcher gear, and listening to a police radio scanner, manages to track down one of the remaining monsters yet to have been captured by Winters, although he doesn't fare too well against it, and fails in actually capturing the creature, before things then get even worse when he's met by Leo, who'd spoken multiple times earlier about his dislike for the way the Night Watcher operates, and he now looks to put a stop to his vigilante nonsense once and for all, which he at first attempts to do by talking him down, but this just prompts Raph to unleash an attack on him. So Leo's forced to take him down, and in the process, he ends up unmasking the crime fighter and revealing him to be Raph, who following the loss, finally lets out all of the pent-up anger and resentment he's built towards Leo over the last year or so, claiming he can't just leave them for years and then come back and boss them around like nothing happened. But it isn't long before Raph chooses against just using his words and becomes violent again, as he unleashes another attack on his brother, which works out much better this second time around than it did the first, as he actually manages to defeat him, although, in the process, he comes uncomfortably close to killing him as well, prompting him to run off, frightened, and immediately following his exit, Leo's suddenly shot in the arm by a tranquilizer dart and knocked out by the Stone Generals. Earlier, it was revealed that the Generals had collected all but one of the monsters, but have decided not to bring the final one to Winters, as his plan to send the monsters back through the portal from which they came so that his generals can be freed from their stone prison would result in them losing their immortality, which they refuse to let happen. So they plan on bringing in Leo as the final monster instead of the real one, so that Winters' plan will fail. Leo though, before falling unconscious, lets out a harrowing scream that gets Raph's attention, and he promptly rushes towards him, although only to witness as he's carried away by the Generals and the Foot Clan, as he's unfortunately unable to catch up to them as they drive off. So he then heads back down to their home in the sewers and reveals what had happened to Splinter, who finally decides that the time for hiding is over and that they must save their brother. So the remaining 3 turtles and Splinter, along with Casey and April, the latter of whom suits up in a yellow ninja suit she'd gotten from Japan, travel to Winter's headquarters located at the exact location of the portal's opening, which we see has already begun, and immediately we also see Winter's plan to send the monsters back through it fail, as his generals claim that his time giving orders is over and refuse to listen to his warning that immortality is a curse. Meanwhile, outside, the Turtle, Splinter, Casey, and April work together to fight off the foot ninjas guarding the entrance, before making their way inside and quickly freeing Leo from his cage, in time to witness as Winters is suddenly tossed across the building by his stone generals, who then surround the heroes and express their plans of raining destruction upon the earth. They also attempt to recruit the Foot Clan for this mission, but Karai, somewhat surprisingly, declines their offer, claiming the Foot is not without honor, and she instead decides to help Winters and the heroes find the last monster. So Karai, Casey, and April head off to do just that, while the Turtles battle the Stone Generals, and Splinter and Winters fight off the monsters, attempting to enter their world through the portal. The brawl continues on for a while, but eventually, April, Casey, and Karai return with the final monster on their trail, and successfully lead it straight into the Stone Generals, who along with it get sucked into the portal that, now having recollected the 13 monsters, ultimately closes once again. With the day saved, Karai prepares to exit with her army, but as she does, she warns the Turtles that they and the Foot will have further business together in the future, the kind that involves familiar faces from their past. And following her exit, Winters then thanks the heroes for their help and for finally breaking him free of his curse, as he allows himself to pass on and be turned into dust. Later, once back at home, Splinter places Winter's mask alongside other artifacts from their past, including the presumably defeated Shredder's mask, which shares a similar design to the one seen in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles released in 1990, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze released in 1991, the broken canister of ooze seen in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the Time Scepter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 released in 1993, and the Honor Guard armor, also from TMNT 3, amongst other things. And in addition to all this, Raph decides to put up his Night Watcher helmet as a proud Splinter watches on, leading Mikey to try and put up his Cowabunga Carl helmet as well, before we then again watch as the Turtles run across New York City rooftops over another narration, this time from Raph, who as the movie ends, leaves us off by stating that, no matter who or what they face next, nothing will change the fact that they'll always be brothers. And that was our recap of 2007's TMNT. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And also, let us know in the comments below what you thought of the film, and where you'd rank it amongst the other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle theatrical releases to date. If you want to see more content like this, check out the second link in the description for our TMNT playlist. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.